it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today, focusing in on the psychopathic trait of love bombing and the discard, and what Thomas Sheridan calls in his book, Puzzling People, The Labyrinth of the Psychopath. It's a great book. It's a study of the psychopathic population by a gentleman, I believe he is Irish descent, and with his extensive experience with psychopaths in the music industry as well as Wall Street, as well as his upbringing as well, he was able to elicit a lot of great descriptions and insight into this population and how they abuse. And he describes, of course, the universally accepted underlying characteristic of psychopathic behavior is muted emotional responses to negative situations in combination with often unrestrained impulsiveness. And I want to focus in on how he describes this muted emotional response to negative situation and really use this as a typifying, really sort of marker of psychopathic behavior within individuals, and how this can help you sort of determine and assess whether you're involved with a psychopathic individual. And this ability for them to have really an unflinching emotional response to something that would be horrific, which would normally make somebody flinch. It would make somebody react. Something that someone would typically be floored emotionally if something had occurred, and yet they're cool, calm, as if nothing had happened. Now, this ability to not react, to handle situations under pressure with very cool, calm demeanor, can be a real facility for them in a lot of relationships, business-wise as well as emotional. They just do not have an emotional connectedness. They do not have remorse. They do not have regret. They do not live with a conscience. And so if without a conscience, they feel very much like they are unburdened by things like empathy and compassion. So these qualities of empathy, compassion, feeling for others, that sort of humanity, what makes you a person, they feel is actually a weakness in others. So if they see others acting empathetically, if they see others acting with compassion, they feel like, silly you, why should you be hindered by that? Why should you be bothered with that? That's not important. That's irrelevant. So they tend to feel that others who exemplify those behaviors are in essence weak. And really that is the bulk of humanity. People who have emotion, emotional connection, emotional relationships, utilizing sex to culminate emotional connection with people. They, in fact, are, as professed psychopaths have stated, that they can be very asexual, which means having no feelings when it comes to emotional connectiveness. And when we talk about having no emotions when it comes to sexual intercourse, their high sexuality, it's as if they're having sex strictly for the purpose of manipulating and controlling somebody. So they have no emotional connection to their sexual escapades. So it's a very lethal combination that they tend to have high levels of promiscuity, high-risk sexual behavior, high levels of testosterone and adrenaline, yet devoid of the emotional connection to people. So in essence, they use sex to overpower. They use sex to control people. And they really believe that those people who have an emotional warmth or connection, or want to snuggle or have coffee, or have candlelight or champagne, or the different things that make sexual, take it to the next level, a heightened experience, they just kind of go along with it. They're sussing people out. So if you see that they're just kind of looking at you, observing you, they're reading and they're processing the situation. So they're learning here. And so when you see these people engaging in a lot of different sexual relationships, or lack of emotional connection, lack of rootedness, lack of history, especially history which they share with you, it seems to be devoid or absent. It's because they have no need to be connected or have a root or have a foundation. They don't work like that. They don't look at life that way. They don't build in their life in that manner. They strictly vacillate between people, relationships, organizations, conquests, strictly for the purpose of that, of gaining power, gaining prestige, getting whatever it is that they want. And generally, they're highly intelligent. So if you see a charm, it's usually an intellectual charm. Their ability to manipulate and control can be vastly enhanced. It can just be intensely elevated within these people. And so then you see the piecemeal, and I apologize, I've got some allergies going on. When you see the devaluing, it's the idealization, which is the love bombing phase, where they're giving you consistent and ongoing adoration, praise, attention. Very superficial though. It's almost as if they're testy when they give you the praise and attention, and often the forced smile as well. I think the psychopaths have a very forced smile, a very forced positivity. Again, I liken it to Seinfeld, the sitcom Seinfeld, and Kramer. You know, the guy with the crazy hair and like the big entrances, and just like that behavior that is just, it's like really funny. But it's kind of like how he has that kind of false, fake, forced smile. I would say that is very typical of a psychopathic individual, because they're able to fake this smile and then read and survey the situation. So again, we see the persona, we see the facade, and then the devaluing, which is when either, you're trying to culminate a legitimate relationship with them, and then you've sussed them out. Basically, you've determined that you want something real, and they have then therefore determined that they can't deliver what's real. And so they're knowing that the relationship is ultimately going to arrive at that conclusion. And so you see this very deliberate and piecemeal degradation of your personality, of your relationship. And this can be extremely devastating. And I think why it's so the terror and the shock and the post-traumatic stress syndrome symptoms tend to overwhelm people is because you almost feel like you're in the presence of a corpse or a person, a void in a human body. And so I think that's what's really shocking and scary and terrifying, is that when you come to the depths, when you see this energetic field around this person, which has a very cold, a very evil sort of void. You can feel it when they're not on. If the psychopath has momentarily flipped the switch where they're not on, they're not living on their persona to cultivate you and creating a supply. You feel this. You feel this really Antarctic sort of polar chill from this person, and it's not just like one of discipline, like I'm gonna teach you a lesson, how people get this kind of very stern look. It's really even colder than that, and it's very feels very much like death, I guess, to use a term, meaning absence of life or absence of humanity or absence of presence. In a positive sense, you feel a very cold that comes over them. And it's this combination with their muted emotional responses to negative situations. So their dog dying, their kids passing away, their spouse wanting to divorce them. They have lost their job. It's not that they're coping with the loss of their dog. It's that they don't feel anything. It's not that they're coping with their spouse wanting a divorce. It's that they don't feel anything. They don't feel an emotional connection. They really, they feel akin to their animal as they would to a pair of cowboy boots. In fact, they might like their cowboy boots more as a utilitarian thing than their dog. I mean, in other words, they have about the same feeling for their dog as a pair of cowboy boots would have for a dog. They just don't have an emotional repertoire. They don't have an emotional spectrum. So I think that's what's really at the core and crux of the trauma and why it hurts so much is because of that initial love bombing where they're idealizing you. They're fitting the puzzle piece in so perfectly, and yet you realize that it has nothing to do with you. The love that you felt had nothing to do with you, and so it's very devastating, and it's a very deliberate cultivating of this love bomb with devaluing and piecemeal discarding that is really, it's meant to devalue, hurt, confound you, confuse you, keep you really playing it over in your mind and wondering, and they know the effect that they have on people. So that's also part of the cruel discard as well, is that it's very deliberate and calculated. So if you've gone through this sort of, very high, and then this low, and experienced a lot of that coldness, perhaps try to understand that this is just a relationship with a very manipulative person. Get away from them right away. Even if it's your own flesh and blood, even if it's your own family member. It's not about, accepting them for the way that they are, because it's an active destruction. The destruction does not stop when you're with them. In fact, they don't stop. If they want to devalue you, and they really have a vision of destruction for you because that's what they enjoy. They have a very sadistic way about them, where they're almost relieved when you're hurt. They're almost joyous when you're hurt. It's not uncommon for a psychopath to almost laugh when you're sick, or chuckle when you've injured yourself. You have a illness, and they're just like, okay, good. I mean, it's really, really, really twisted. Just to use a non-technical term, it's a very, very twisted. And so you have to realize that the psychopath does not look at the love relationship the way that you do. They look through it with very different eyes. And accepting this and knowing this and hopefully putting some of the pieces of the pattern together, you'll know what you're dealing with, so you know how to handle it, which is with absolute positive, no contact, and moving on. And learning really the lesson that you were meant to learn from this relationship, which hopefully you can alchemize and transform into something positive, which becomes then an unconditional positive self-regard and a further closeness with yourself. I think is really the core of a lot of the relationship lessons that are meant to be gleaned from this horrific personality and relationship. And I apologize if you have gone through such relationships, as I feel for you. And I hope you can utilize the tools and the lessons on this channel to further yourself. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.